And welcome back to part 3 of the Increasing Success Grant Writing Workshops. The exciting bit now, right? Now let's get started. Everybody pick up their pens. This part is going to walk you through, now that you've done all the planning. So you've talked about the eligibility criteria, you know the context of the grant environment, you know what the grant seekers are, grant makers are actually after from you, and now it's time to start writing your grant. Here are some top tips that we've received in terms from the funder's perspective. So again, I do sound like a broken record, but what I am going to recap on is the things that they've actually stated as being priority for them. Read the guidelines and the other support materials. So sometimes they might say, we're really interested in seeing if your projects align with our strategic direction from 2016 to 19. So that would mean read their strategic direction, you know, so that you know exactly what's in it and whether or not your project can align to it. Read the guidelines again, you know, make sure you fit. Remember, square peg, square hole, not the other way around. Honestly self-assess if your project really does meet the overall goals of the funding program. I know sometimes it's disheartening to think, oh, here's a great opportunity, we haven't had one for a long time, and now it's come across our desk and oh, we're so close to fitting, maybe we manipulate. The thing about grant writing is, and the thing that funders have said through their recent survey, is that what you need to do is you need to prepare your project, be really confident in your project, self-assess it, and then seek the grant opportunity. Don't do it the other way around. It is really difficult to make those things work and to adapt your project. So be honest and integral in your project and then find the right grant for it, not the other way around. Again, carefully check the eligibility criteria, read the questions and answer them. Write like the funder knows nothing about you. So even if they have funded you in the past, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, it doesn't mean that the same people are reading that application, or it also doesn't mean that that's the solution to your problems, is that you go, oh, well, they know all about me, I'm just going to be clear and concise this way. Clear and concise means tell them your story, tell them who you are, write like they know nothing about you. Tell them how your project addresses the criteria within the responses. Again, just like a selection criteria or a uni assignment, really, if you're not going to answer the questions, you'll get a fail. Include any research or results or data of importance. You can use demonstrable evidence, cite resources, cite sources, pilots that have worked in the past. All those things are really important if you've got them. So, put them in if they're relevant to your particular project. Ensure someone who writes well puts the application together. Again, the academic integrity of a grant is important too. You want to make sure that it reads well, that your sentences are well structured, that you use correct grammar. All of those things are really important. You need to also have somebody to check and proof. So it's always just really nice to have somebody who can then sit down with you and read through your application and then be able to tell you in 25 words or less what you're asking for. It means that they've checked it for academic integrity, but they've also proofed it in terms of are you clear and concise, and are you answering the question? Because if they can't tell you what it's about, then there's a problem in your application and the way that you've illustrated your story. You need to tell what the need is. Illustrate the need well. Grants are highly competitive, so you need to be the one to demonstrate why you are the best place to do this particular piece of work. Ensure that your information is relevant and submit before the deadline. So again, difficult with time restraints, but the thing that some funders have said is that often, throughout the funding period from opening the grant to closing the grant, that, dribs and drabs of applications will come in, and board members might actually say, as they come in, can you please give them to us and we will read them as we go, so that we don't have 100 to read on closing date, just for their own sake, sanity and sake. So in saying that, is that if yours comes in a dribs and a drabs, they may be more likely to remember the one that arrived on a Wednesday application period, as opposed to, you know, midnight on the deadline when 100 applications arrive and you get lost in the mix. So it's just a little kind of strategic kind of move, but it's something to think about because they may actually remember and have more time and energy and space because they've only got 1 or 2 applications to read at that particular time. Balance emotion with evidence. So, you know, yes, the stories of young people that we work alongside of are incredibly emotive. They're genuine, they're real, they're authentic. So they're going to be generally creating connections for people who read them. But it is about also saying that, you know, yes, these young people's story is real, but this is because this is why it's real. So can you evidence it? You know, can you use a piece of data that actually, or some statistics to say, yes, mental health is, you know, a prevalent issue in our community, and these are the reasons why. That's really important. It could be as easy as using like the Mission Australia survey for young people each year. You know, top presenting issues for young people as identified by young people. You know, it can be as simple as that sort of stuff. So don't think you have to delve into some sort of academic, you know, archive to find some relevant statistics. There's often some really great research studies and stuff that goes around, and, you know, social media are great places to find that kind of information now. So, you know, writing a grant is around telling a story. It's like a story writing activity. So, you know, this is just a really simple kind of process that you can use to actually get you to the point of writing a really successful application. So what I encourage you to do is start with a brain dump. So basically, you know, sit down with our butcher's paper and our pens, because that's how we roll, and write down everything that you think about this project. What is it that is going to work? What is it that you like the best? What is it, you know, what are the ins and outs? What are some of your ideas? Oh, they don't quite fit together, but that's okay. You're just dumping them. What I want you to then do is organise and refine them with somebody. Maybe even your team. Go to a team meeting, spend an hour organising and refining, because other people will bring so much more to the table when they start unpacking your ideas with you. So then you organise and refine them a little bit. Then it gives you the opportunity to walk away with that refined document and go, okay, cool. I got a clearer picture of what this project is going to look like. And I've had feedback from my colleagues, which also says to me that this project could be successful. What you want to do is now build the detail in the story. So you want to start writing around, you know, what are the aims and objectives? What is it about this story? What are the goals? What am I hoping to achieve? Those sorts of things is building the detail. Then you want to polish it. So sometimes it's good to leave it for a little bit, give it a couple of days, come back to it, reread it, refine it, polish it, and then go back potentially to that same team that you went to when you were organising and refining, and ask them to check the story. See what they think of it. See if it matched what they thought they were kind of heading towards when you had that process with them in the first instance. And also check with them that they can actually communicate with you what that project is hoping to achieve. What is it? What need is it filling? Is there a gap? Have you identified a gap? And have you been really clear to say these are our aims and objectives and these are the goals? Again, just another way of talking about storytelling. You know, funders have said really clearly that they want to be engaged. Tell them something compelling. Tell them something that they're really interested in. Tell them something that they want to keep reading. Explain the problem. So be very clear. Again, answer the question. What is the problem? Explain the problem. What's the problem? You know, drug and alcohol use in our community is, you know, on the increase because of X, Y, and Z. This is the problem. Tell me the solution. Well, my project is the solution, you know. So then you need to, this is your opportunity to talk about what it is about your project and why it's the best to fill that problem. Show me the impact. So again, revisiting, you know, the social impact stuff and looking at primary, secondary and tertiary impacts and beneficiaries of your project, is that don't underestimate the effect that a small workshop over 10 weeks with 10 young people can have on the school community, can therefore have on their families, can have on their communities. That stuff is really powerful and I think gets lost sometimes in translation. So make sure you have a look at those other, the other impacts, you know, the more broader sustainable impacts that happen from your project. Prove I can trust you. Again, Youth Plus. What is it about us? What is it about your school? What is it about the person, the facilitator? What is it about the product? You know, tell me that I can trust you and that I want to fund you. And motivate me. So motivate me to then go to my funding meetings and talk about you and say, this incredible project came across my desk the other day and we're going to look at funding it, but gee whiz, like, you know, I reckon they could do with a lot more money and we don't have it, but let's talk about how we can support this particular project. Motivate me to be really interested and connected. Just wanted to go through with you some examples on how to actually storytell in a way that is going to be translatable for the grant maker, so that they pick up your application and they want to keep reading it. They don't actually go, oh goodness, I'm so lost by this that I don't know what to do. So this is an example. Engage me. What does your organisation do? We Connect is a membership-based organisation made up of health professionals, social workers, psychologists, and art therapists and teachers. Our PBI is DGR. Our mission is, I don't know about you, but that's just a massive chunk of information. Yes, it tells us a lot. There is no doubt about that particular organisation, We Connect, but it doesn't necessarily do it in a way that is translatable, that is easy to read, that actually gives us the impact that we want when somebody picks up a cold document and knows nothing about us. So, is this a good example, or should we look at something else? Or, what does your organisation do? We Connect works to enable refugee children to grow to their full rightful place in society's resilient, empowered adults, having had the kinds of early childhood which allows them to develop. Well, very different to the first sentence that I read in the previous example. The other thing that stands out to me is the structure of this particular answer. In breaking down the information into subheadings and bullet points, it makes that information so much more translatable, and it makes it easier, one, on my eye and also on my brain. So I can actually, can take in that information a whole lot better because it's actually much more translatable. So I think that these are the things that we sometimes may miss when we're just writing, because we know about us so well. So we might just get writing and write a spiel and then actually realise that, oh, that's not easy read. You know, are they going to engage with me about that? Or are they just going to look at it and go, that's too hard. I don't have the brain power for that today. So some things. Don't be scared to use subheadings. Don't be scared to use dot points. Don't be scared to cite references. Don't be scared to quote pilots or things that have worked for you before. Spell out exactly what you do and write to your audience. Again, write like they don't know you, anything about you. Don't assume that the funder has your knowledge. So sometimes I think we take for granted how much we actually do know about the space that we work in, and we don't actually communicate that very well. So don't take that for granted, and don't assume that they know. Watch your jargon and your acronyms. Again, consistency is really important, but also we just get caught up in a world of acronyms. So don't assume that that funder has any idea what all these acronyms are. You know, make sure that you spell them out and you're clear about them. Plan your application well in advance of the deadlines. Don't be scared to communicate with the funder or build a relationship, and say thank you. You know, there's lots of ways you can say thank you. Social media is a great way to say thank you. You know, communicate with the Youth+ Foundation about how we can thank your donors. You know, we can actually tweet about them and put up a Facebook post about them and say thank you. That's the kind of thing that they love to retweet, or they love to reshare on their social media pages themselves, because it makes them look good. But it also then communicates that we're really grateful and that we would love to have an opportunity with them in the future, and they may remember us because of those particular things. Remember, you cannot be just a good idea. Your idea can't be just a good idea. It needs to show the demand, the need, the gap, and if possible, it needs to be evidenced. want to run you through just a little activity around, you know, what's in the language, because sometimes the language can be really difficult when it comes to applications. Outputs, outcomes, and impacts are three of those particular language types that and the words that can get confused in terms of the definitions. So an output is a number of people you will reach, products or services you will purchase, deliver, or distribute. Outputs are quantifiable. So like the purchase of chairs, for example, or, you know, the purchase of musical equipment, you know, that is what an output is. That's the purchase. The outcomes are the changes that will occur as a result of the activities or outputs. And impacts are the longer term benefits that can be attributed to your program, sometimes observed more broadly than in your project's initial target group. So that's like the impact that I'm talking about in primary, secondary, tertiary. So little quiz. Bear with me. Have a little bit of a think, get a pen, have a think about what this is. Pick the output, outcome, or impact. 15 volunteers upskill across 3-day intensive training course. What do you think that would be? That's right, it's an output. It's basically quantifiable. It's the output, it's what you put in, the activities that you put in to see an outcome, for example. Significant increase in confidence among children recovering from severe burns. What do you think that one would be? Significant increase in the confidence. That's right, it's an outcome. So because of a particular project or program, there is an increased significance and confidence amongst those recovering from severe burns. So it's an outcome. And finally, greater peace of mind for families as patients undergoing chemotherapy are able to resume their work, family, and commitments sooner. What do you think that would be? That's right, it's an impact. So it's a broader social impact of your smaller projects. If your outcome, your output in outcome, your impact is that it's actually a greater peace of mind for families. Bit of an idea, but you will come across these as you go. And sometimes I like to put it up. I put this particular thing up on my board beside me, just so I can always remember what the clarification is: output, outcome, impact. We've come to the end of part 3 now. Thanks for bearing with me. I hope that you're picking up a little bit along the way. If you have any questions that arise, obviously contact the Youth+ Foundation, but check out our resources online at the document library. But yeah, like I said, contact us and we can have a bit more of a chat about anything that's coming up throughout these workshops. I'll see you for part 4.